Greetings, everyone. Again thanking you for the support to the works both from the collection Grimoire with the 70 names of the daemons, as well as from the collection Grimorium Verum Carpenicum. Still waiting your communication was stopped it so I can facilitate your acquisition by KDP. Incidentally, sales abroad increase a lot every day, especially of printed books in the United States, which Amazon shop offer the same advantages much cheaper to buy than printed books on Amazon in Brazil. And demonology is very efficient in the collections already mentioned and they are worth it. Even if there are traditional icons on left path like Michael Ford who multiply his faithful followers of their religions, I respect those who like it, but it's a different path than what I suggest in my works. The left hand I explore is results oriented, not unconcerned with results. Like it or not, they do the same thing that those who eliminated magic practitioners have done for centuries, but in reverence for different deities. Are they gods? ETs? Superhumans? Wherever they are, it doesn't matter because the results with the activities guide ourselves in my books printed. Demons reverted in religions is another story. My approach to daemons is as the Greek name for foreign gods. Romans with their great political influence before his empire and now in the church associated them with evil. It is a military deal to conquer nations when overthrow their native beliefs. Therefore good and evil lies in those who use them, not in the beings who fulfill our requests. Everyone outside the Christian pantheon is demon. So the pragmatic dogma is that of your success, and that your practices are the factors that answer your doubts, mainly by how much each thing will cost. Not a repetition of theories that brings excellence, but of your successful practice. This is what these works are for, practice and works aimed exclusively at your success. A lot of material, content and activities to spare for you to set up your coven, grotto, sect or even a left-hand religion. The interactive reaching of Holy Guardian Angel through daemons, not angels to operate within introduction, with orientation to work with sigils, offerings and altars, oils and incense, candles, oaths, prayers, talismans and spells, magic knots, hand of glory, dolls, pacts, IMPs, crossroads, etc. In case of a group is sensational content to train neophytes, and work with the other books, at least from the same collection, they will be able to expand all the techniques learned adapting to each and every name with which you will operate, each with activities consistent with their line of work. I also sincerely thank those who choose my books to either buy them, or also borrow on Kindle Unlimited, with monthly increasing number who understood my pragmatic structure instead of religious. The acquisition volume, mainly of printed, is surpassing all my books by Brazilians. As my books you get through KDP, it is through Amazon that you will get them, to borrow in the Kindle Unlimited, and can keep them in your reader until you return it. Thus, before buying a book or printed, you will be able to get to know the material, read it for later. If you like it, then you buy. And Kindle Unlimited only has a limit to put 20 electronic books in your account, but infinite when you return one and borrow another. You pay the current monthly fee only to exchange new books. The month is over, you pay anew and acquire another month of term to borrow new electronic books. The monthly fee is for borrowing new electronic books, when you can hold as long as it takes to read it without forcing yourself to return them, even if the last monthly fee you paid ceases to be in effect. Now I got a really cool to make videos as audiobooks with great quality, but within English. My last video in English also was with tonality and digital voice telling a story, and I loved it. So I'm already trying to make smaller unpublished ebooks in audiobooks. Comment below if you are interested in purchasing audiobooks on guidelines to operate with daemons of the collections, please. But let's go. This video is to amplify the usefulness of the origins of my own book. This name was addressed only in magic with the Holy Guardian Angel of Abramelin, the mage, but with my proper guidance to the original I passed it on in my book under book Abramelin Pathworking Magic. In this case the practical guidance is a little generic, so here we talk to God, or what you define as divine. As I told you, in religions they seek the divine, what in magic practitioners we normally talk with. So here and now a new activity to open the doors to speak with your divine world. In magic is gnosis, purpose of what religious seek. This transform our wood into reality, when success in results is our end, different from religious who, instead of correcting themselves, submit their lives to the wood of the divine, thinking that repeat the mistakes can have different results. When we have unwanted results, we immediately will not use the same method for the same purpose, learning from our own experiences. So today an expansion of the ebook or printed on pathworking for the Abramelin. This new and IQE activity is to enjoy even more, according to the proposal here at
Chaos Magic Time.
Today's topic about the demon code for point 10. Today's the purpose deals with one of the resources to reach Gnosis, as in the other several examples in the text published in the Libanon and Psychonaut of Peter Carroll, on page 33 in the list described as horror, but here I will explore as despair. Both have a possible association, non-absolute rule due to the different ways that each manifests itself. Badly used, when we are educated not just by televisions guiding us that the only alternative to seek is our submission to Almighty God, when that is just the policy of including sheep in temple. Remembering that we magic practitioners have agreements made in our conversations with the divine in common moments. After all, our pragmatism, agreements that don't work are a joke, right? I know that as a rule most people don't take pleasure in going into despair for whatever reason. Despair activates a series of mechanisms in our consciousness and body that make us overcome our limits. We just didn't know how to use them before. So despair itself is not the problem, but is not knowing how to deal with it. Like it or not, it is more common to practice by the lack of alternatives. In these situations people, instead of looking for and discovering solutions, their lack of desire to overcome throws them into doldrums of guilt, the very fear of risking new alternatives to defeat these people. All that succeed during crises of desperation have been impactful changes for humanity. As in 1929 crisis on New York Stock Exchange only had option of finding solutions or killing themselves. As in the examples, in addition to being easier to understand, a problem plagues most people. When you overcome your despair, at least you learn from your experiences how to avoid them. So, even before we get desperate, we can prepare for them in advance within this perspective with the 4.10 demon, for those looking to bring this valuable procedure to use when you later feel yourselves entering a desperate situation. As a weapon for those who protect themselves by carrying them, by being able to anticipate your desperate reactions when meeting them, you can establish your own intellectual procedures that automatically activate in the face of triggers that you recognize in yourselves.
So what is the name of this activity today?
This new activity that I will pass on to you so that we can deal with the previous requirements and deal with the consequences mainly in situations of disgrace in our personal path today to NPRECDENTD in the ebook and in the book Abramelin Pathworking Magic that I named Despair. Note that this pathworking today is just one among many alternatives for personal Gnosis. However, here we seek to reverse something that normally becomes tragic, so that instead of the resulting traditional posture, it is the route to bring solutions.
For what purpose and how it works?
Note that this pathworking today is just one among many alternatives for personal Gnosis. However, here we seek to reverse something that normally becomes tragic, so that instead of the resulting traditional posture, it is the route to bring solutions. Despair is a form of Gnosis. Even Gnosis has several types of manifestations and more methods to reach it, so this is just one very common, especially in times of crisis. Mainly for this activity to avoid suicide of people who think they have no alternatives, as they always exist. Ever. The primary purpose is for emotional self-management, rather than necessarily directed towards external outcomes. It's like questioning which came first, the chicken or the egg, or in this specific case the change in our own emotional response or the consequences of this change as a goal in itself. However, especially in face of distant or close tragedies, the feeling of despair is natural animal. Denying or curbing the same is the same as curbing a natural mechanism that either makes us create solutions, or submits us to the attitudes of defeated people, or victims, or slaves of a situation. The purpose of this is to manage the manifestation of this mechanism to that bring solutions, instead our individual submissions to the misfortune. Thus recreate the use of a natural mechanism in us that, through suggestion, we activate a response to create solutions, instead posture of slaves. For this, a standard phrase synthetically activates our attitude of reaction in response, rather than simple submission. This suggestion is erective, but the despair derived from a misfortune is inevitable, as any misfortune is not foreseen in advance so that we could be prepared for. An example of this attitude is a character and name from an old series called Mago, who solved his problems in the most incredible way. Sure, he had a script ready and the series is a fiction, But in your real life what counts are your attitudes, and it is with them that this magic will work.
How will this path working create a response trigger for me to bring solutions, when I usually stay with no actions in the face of the unforeseen?
Persistence for generations. People cannot lie to government or will be arrested or imprisoned. On the other hand, government can lie to the people for its politics. However, when the eggs break, then the resulting uplift is never free, and we will always bear the consequences of what we do or decide. If you do this poorly to your personal submission, this path working will be harmful, programmed to posture of a slave. As you practice degenerate changes according to your will, then your ability to build in yourself mechanism to bring solutions in your own actions, instead the other way around. An example: in Brazil, managed by electronic buttons of injustice and electoral fraud, maintains a gang of criminals in politics programmed to bring the worst to our country, mainly supporters of Sao Paulo Forum. But that does not mean that the Brazilian people are in fact as criminal as this rabble. Incredible as it may seem, and result of this hacking, the people are against the slave of crime. Or you can identify people red with shame for this slaves fueled by mortadella. Maybe they are red with shame for lying that they fight against dictatorship, when they want to implement an even worse. So none like being a slave to crime and dictatorships. Before worrying about who sows misfortune in your own country, program yourself to banish this attitude of slaves in you, to bring your success through work, instead of into scheme of unsustainable state machines or crime.
Theoretically, more intellectual people claim that practical magic should be impartial, in the attitude they call correct, on the fence. These people are academics and occupy commanding positions in companies. So how can you, who still have to work hard to support yourself, claim that this reactive posture is the correct one instead of the submissive one?
Since humans have organized into society, these larger or smaller population agglomerations have two groups, one of who ruled and the other are ruled. The structures of companies, religions and commercial groups are in this pyramidal structure, where a few command and the most are of subordinate people. However, always some people tried to shield themselves from this, mainly with what is now science, deceiving the deceitful people in power, until their magic formulas were discovered, and the magicians no longer deceived commanding people that their deeds were supernatural, when scientifically proven. As what still applies today was and is that magic is today what science is tomorrow. So among our practitioners the hierarchical pyramid of commanded and commanders also works, where wise people even seen in it, but in fact do things discreetly in such a way that command people do not notice. As example, still advertisers, even if increasingly guided by artificial intelligence, they still try to use old enchantments to deceive people into being unable to question reality, so that people under command adopt obedient mental and ideological behaviors as if submitting to the correct commands. In some cases enslavement and lie technique works, especially in religious cases about people for a long time molded to be slaves who still haven't developed the trigger in themselves to overcome themselves, or overcome the challenges in their lives. A very common attitude is mainly religious schemes, many among the frauds implanted by dogmas already known from their roots, until legal sessions can stop them if it is of interest to those who command the legal power, since legal impartiality also does not exist, or never existed. Appearance of political correctness is only for who command to apply what interests them, while the interests of people controlled don't matter. An example: in Hebrew Bible, Abraham had a tradition of sacrificing his firstborn as act to Jehovah, until, by his own will, he changed this biblical custom. As said and repeated, as law is not and has never been impartial, the religious law for both Hebrews and especially Roman Catholics does not include many texts that do not interest them. But as long as the faithful command obey the writings and don't even question, nothing will change. Nor under will of the divine. Absurd magic practitioners deal with the divine daily, but break platform in religious safety zone, war not worth. If you doubt writ against the attitude of people slaves, freeing themselves from it, working hours to even receive lunchbox and just to quench hunger. If consider without options to be the desired outcome, cage yourself. If you are an aspiring commander deceiving other people in your methods, so that slaves continue to survive with the minimum wage even to acquire food equivalent to the minimum wage, this is a crime and there's no magic in courts. Far from appearances, the posture of implanting mental triggers to bring solutions instead of submission, in addition to being the correct policy and ideology for those who have their own will, are the declaredly unique ones that bring concrete results in your own life without depending on others.
When I take a reactive position instead of a submissive one, for my will to be established instead of the will of the commanding people, I suffer more and more boycott. Especially by not submitting to political correctness. Do I really have to face the will of those in charge so that, after due argumentation of reality, my will is applied?
Welcome to the magic. In your experience you will learn to beware of this rather than just taking reactive measures, but even the most experienced magical person is not immune to despair. When you feel despair itself, it is already automatically the ideal circumstance to know how to use emotion. To trigger solutions with which you are guided by this mechanism, applying trigger WORSCTHANITIS, ITCANDE, instead here shown situations that involve you. Despite the term facing closely associated with conflict, battles and wars, train yourself the first step to implant emotional trigger. To generate solutions rather problems, when dealing with this desperation to seeing alternatives, fighting, battling or in war will only waste your time. You need to change the attitude itself so that change bring you the desired result sooner to avoid having to fight with yourself, or even later.
Oh my! This seems like a lot of work, when it's easier for me to stay in my comfort zone obeying those who command me as I always do and keep surviving as I always have. How is my holy guardian angel going to help me maintain at least that much?
To generate solutions rather problems, when dealing with this desperation to seeing alternatives, fighting, battling or in war will only waste your time. You need to change the attitude itself so that change bring you the desired result sooner to avoid having to fight with yourself, or even later. Machines do the same to produce the same, so humans always have advantage of changing to improve the results. Accepting to practice magic and not only adapting to changes, those changes bring you greater benefits, conditions and, above all, independence from what you don't like and don't want. Aware of this structure, so if you practice magic to remain the same, better orient yourself with what you practice. As an example, even if you act under the command of someone with little chance of bringing you improvements in these conditions, only you find options to get out of this despair. Aware of this structure, so if you practice magic to remain the same, better orient yourself with what you practice. As an example, even if you act under the command of someone with little chance of bringing you improvements in these conditions, only you find options to get out of this despair. That's it, folks. It's not all answers for your circumstances. Whether path working with the demon in the 3.09 code bring you this answer. This is the great advantage of path working in magic, when you can carry out this activity anywhere, as long as you have conditions for relaxation and conditions. That's it, folks. Path working with demon code 3.09 bring others answers for your circumstance. The great advantage of path working in magic is to you carry out anywhere, as long as you have conditions for relaxation and conditions to perform it, usually the result of your development with meditation. Our increasingly accelerated society and anxiety rate undermines us to develop mainly our own concentration, but that is precisely where there is already a field to improve. You devise how and where you need to develop. To reach your success requires that you practice as much as you can. This video wasn't that long. But finally, anyone who can help me abroad by also acquiring the ritual booklets, they are pocket-sized notebooks with blank or lined pages related to Gosha to keep writings exclusively on magic, while at the same time, portal to path working on the cover itself. So they already offer resources for your activities in this pattern. Just look for Notebook and Tesla Demer books, these pocket books, each on the cover with the sigil of one of the 72 daemons of Gosha. So thank you for your presence and I wish you a great week.